Go. Okay, first of all, welcome. My name's Alex Reuben. I'm talking a little bit about post-exploitation. So this is kind of a quick high-level overview, rundown on common techniques and tools that you may see in Windows environment. If you're conducting a pen test, if there's a current attack happening. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I finished my associates in information security from Delaware Tech Terry campus last December. Since then, I enrolled at Wilmington University in computer network security. Got about another year left there. Anybody interested? We'll be posting the slides and the demo videos, public Dropbox afterwards, and there will be a link on the Twitter account. Okay. So anybody who's worked in a Windows domain environment, this will be a little bit of a review, but these are some things that I really want to cover before we get into. So the big point with Windows domain environments is centralized authentication and security. Everything managed through Active Directory domain controller. To log in to your domain account, you're actually authenticating to another server. You're not authenticating to your local machine. That brings us to the domain users versus local users. That's your domain user that you're authenticating to when you log in. If you as a local user, you would be authenticating to your local machine. And the important part about that is the password hashes that are stored on the local machine. Domain environment, those hashes are actually stored on the domain controller. And user access tokens and single sign-on. I don't want to get too deep into that. Be aware of access tokens. That's how Active Directory keeps track of what resources you have access to, have permissions for, and what systems you're logged onto. Okay, so if you log into your workstation on your domain account, there's actually going to be an access security token stored in memory for that computer. Okay. So I'm going to kind of tell the story of a pen test that's going on here. Use it as background for the attack that I'm going to demonstrate. So you have been hired to pen test a business with a moderately sized Windows environment. You've already compromised a single workstation through a phishing email. So you got somebody to download an executable and run it. Okay, you have a shell. That's all you have. So you have a shell. Now what do? That's where the heart of this presentation is. So after you get a shell, what can you do? Move around to escalate to secure your foothold in that Windows domain environment. Okay? Before you do any of this, you have to identify what you're going to be targeting. So anybody just shouted out, what is the main target in a domain environment? I'm going to go for domain controller. Okay? But there are also secondary targets that you can hit along the way. So what would be something else? Maybe network administrator's workstation. Good stuff on there. Maybe a file share. Everybody logs into a lot. You need to plan out what's going to happen ahead of time before you just start attacking everything. So have your foothold in that one workstation. From there, you need to escalate. Okay, maybe you don't have the permissions you need. Maybe you only have a local account. Get your foothold on the domain. Okay? So one of the tools that's really good for that, once you have what's called an interpreter shell, is Hashcat. You can dump the password hashes, use Hashcat to crack those hashes into plain text passwords. Actually, I have a video demo that I recorded earlier how to do that. Okay, so you have your interpreter shell, hash dump. You can see right there. Account name. Landman hashes, which I have turned off on this. LM hashes that we're going to be cracking. Okay. So I already have those hashes on my Windows system. I'm running Windows Hashcat so that there they are, so that I can use my GPU to crack these hashes. So regular Hashcat, it works with your CPU, and it utilizes that resource to crack the hashes. A thing called CUDA Hashcat that utilizes CUDA architecture allows you to be much faster at this kind of task practice hashes. Like for instance, in a Kali Linux VM, the ones I use at school, this process may take about 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour. You can see here, it takes about a second. So a little bit about what I'm typing in here. That -A0 dictionary tag. So I'm trying all the passwords at rocku.txt. It has how many passwords? Millions of passwords. A lot. Actually taking the hash of each of those, comparing it to the hash in the file, if they match the password. -M1000, that's the mode you're using, the hash type. So NTLM, hashcat, that's mode 1000. Have the output file, target hashes, and the word list that you're using. Enter, and it's done. Not a long process. So there are all the plain text passwords for all the users on that system. Okay. So you may be thinking, in a domain environment, why do I need the local user accounts? So think about, you have a domain environment that has 200, 300 computers. You're not going to want to image those one by one by one by one. In an image server, you take one image, push it across the network to all of them. That local administrator account most likely isn't going to have a different password for every single workstation. So if you get the local administrator password, you probably have the local administrator password for every single system on that domain. Okay? Back to my PowerPoint real quick. Okay. As I was saying, the local administrator account is important. Keyloggers. It's a fun one. So you may not have the password hashes that you can crack for the domain user since they're stored on the domain controller. But since you're the user that you've compromised logging into that system with their domain account, drop a keylogger. You already have full access with your shell. You can actually use Meterpreter. They have a built-in keylogger module. You just run a command, it dumps it on there, and start recording keystrokes. Okay, we'll be coming back to that later. Okay, you want to expand. You want to move laterally. You have sufficient permissions on that one workstation that you compromised. You want to move out into the network, maybe to a file share, the network administrator's computer if you can. So like I was saying, local administrator login is often reused on many, if not all, the workstations, just because it would be incredibly difficult and go around and set a different one. Not too. File shares. So the reason file shares are such a big target goes back to that single sign on the access tokens. So when a user authenticates their domain user, their domain account, creates that token. Okay, that's stored in memory. When they access the file share, since it's single sign-on, they don't need to log into that again. It passes the token. So just think of all these users that are accessing the same system, just dumping all their tokens in there. You can use Mimikatz, you can use Meterpreter. There are a few other tools that you can use to grab those tokens and actually impersonate them. So specifically, if the domain administrator had logged onto the file share, impersonate the domain admin, job's done right there. But let's say for our purposes, you're not logged onto the file share. But we were able to access the domain administrator's workstation, local administrator account. Okay. Actually, I want to take a second and do the Mimikatz demo real quick, because this is also another way to get passwords. Mimikatz, a RAM scraping tool. So it pulls information out of running memory, plays on the screen for you. So for instance, any local user accounts that are logged in on a system, Mimikatz to actually dump those plain text passwords out of memory. Kind of scary. So Okay, so this one actually has the initial attack in it. Yeah, I set up a listener in Metasploit. My not a backdoor.exe. Really safe. Okay. Here's a shell. Okay, so right now I am the student user. To escalate the system. I'm now the system itself. So the Mimikatz module, there's also a standalone version you can use for robust. Then, bam, there's some plain text passwords. So in newer versions of Windows, you actually have to migrate into the local security process, the lsas.exe process to be able to do that. But in Windows 7, it doesn't care to access. They kind of got smarter about it in Windows 10. Actually virtualized and isolated the LSAS process. So this still works, very specific conditions, but it's a lot harder to do in Windows 10. Plenty of other tools you can use in 10, don't get me wrong, but this specific technique does not work nearly as well. Okay, so you are now on the network administrator's local admin account. Something you might do earlier. Keylogger. Up a keylogger. I'm going to type in his domain password. So he types it in. You have an administrator shell on the domain. Typically, this is where your job as a pen tester would be. I need to vulnerability testing on other things, but as far as the domain goes, you have the keys to the kingdom, you have everything. You can access anything you want at this point. If you're an attacker of the malicious variety, you would keep going. Because you're not getting paid to hack this network. Okay, you want to get your money's worth. So you want to stick around for a while. So you want to persist in the network. So Netcat is a fantastic tool for that. There's also a persistent module interpreter that I have demos for both of them. Netcat, it actually creates a listening port that hosts the command itself. So this is me configuring the registry on the target so that on startup, this process starts running. I'm uploading the Netcat executable, and then I restart the computer. I reboot it. And when it comes back up, I'll also open the firewall port for that one. I think it's port 9000. And when it comes back up, it now has a listening service on 9000 that if I connect to, it drops me a shell. So the registry entry. The backdoor is running. I just use the same tool, Netcat, for listening and creating connections. Connect to my target system on port 7000. Okay, off the shell. So that'll work as many times as you want it to. Back. And then there's also another method with an interpreter. So there's also another part right at the beginning of this, just to show some of the fun stuff you can do with the interpreter. Just took a screenshot of the victim's play. Hey, there's some secret stuff right there. So it doesn't seem too bad, but imagine if you have some important spreadsheet up on your screen, budget info. So this is a persistence module interpreter. Typing out. Okay, so run persistence. -x. This service starts up when you boot the computer. You can also use -u for when a user logs in. -i5, it actually beacons out me every 5 seconds. It doesn't create a listening port. It tries to initiate a reverse TCP connection. So think about how firewalls work. They don't trust things on the outside. They don't want things coming into the network. So we're using the target machine to get the connection. The firewall trusts things from the inside. port 9000, my IP address that it connects back to. And then -A, it'll automatically create a listener to that connection. Runs, creates a VB script that manages this whole process. And I have another shell now. So at this point, if I want to connect back in, all I have to do is set up a listener on that port, on that IP address, wait about 5 seconds, and I'll get another interpreter. Okay, further learning. So there's all kinds of additional functionality in Netcat, Hashcat, Mimikatz, Metasploit, Interpreter, all the tools we went over. There's so much more they can do that we can't talk about in 20 minutes. So much fun stuff. Like, for instance, Interpreter, you can take screenshots, you can turn on the webcam, the microphone, loggers, whatever you want. You have full access to this. My recommendation would be to try it yourself in a lab. Please, in a lab. Okay, so that's how I simulate all this. I had 2 VMs. I had Kali and I had Windows 7. And I was using one to attack the other. It all took place inside this one laptop. That's a really easy setup you can do. Spin up a couple different versions of Windows, Kali Linux. You spin up one at a time and attack them. See what holes you can find, and then go learn about how to fix them. Honestly, that's the point of all this. We need to fix these holes so these tools don't work anymore. There we go. Any questions? So the persistence module, I have not done it that way. I believe the script that it downloads is only configured to do reverse TCP, but there are plenty of other tools. Yes. With that one persistence module, it's very good at what it does, but it only does that. Okay, but there are plenty of other tools. Netcat you can configure to use on any port. Very versatile. Question? Yep. Yep. So domain passwords are not actually stored on the system. That's what the token's for. To authenticate to the domain controller, it gives you a ticket or a token that you use to then authenticate to any other resources. So that security token is what's sitting in memory. So you can actually use Interpreter to impersonate that token and then forward any traffic through that system. It looks like it's coming from the token you're impersonating to the domain controller. Okay, you can use that as a pivot point. But you can also use Mimikat, what's called a ticket attack, and you can actually create your own Kerberos ticket, but Active Directory uses for authentication. So if you do get the domain administrator hash, you can actually create your own, called a ticket signing ticket, and create your own access to it that are complete. Mimikat is also a very versatile tool. Not just for dumping passwords at it. Okay. Gonna roast me? Okay. So I know you said aside from upgrading, but Windows 10, Mimikatz, they got smart. Okay, so the entire LSAS process, the local security manager, they virtualized and isolated the entire thing in memory. It is extremely difficult. I won't say impossible, but extremely difficult to get Mimikatz to work in that way on Windows 10 if you have it configured correctly. So specifically in Windows 10, there's a feature called Credential Guard, which is what virtualizes that process. You want to make sure that's running, make sure that that process is. Specifically for the local administrators, if your domain is so big that you think you still have to have the same image for everything, the same local administrator password, make it something ridiculous. Okay? Make it something that Hashcat isn't going to crack in a second. Because that password is only valuable if you. There are other attacks, but for that purpose. Okay. Yeah. Of course it does. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's no. Yeah. Kali Linux, get off the website. That's free, open source. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Yeah. So there's also whatever Microsoft Dream Spark is called now. I think. Okay. Microsoft's been getting a lot better of allowing people to test their operating system, download a copy. There are resources out there. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Off the top of my head now. Yeah. Okay. You absolutely could. You absolutely could. It just doesn't happen very often. Yes. It doesn't happen very often. It's more the administrator gets in that mindset that this is a domain environment. They don't need to worry about a local account. And then they push out that image, same password for every single. So there are ways to mitigate it like that. Just you don't see it very often. Yeah. Does anybody know that? PowerShell logging? Question? questions? Credential Guard, yep. Yep. It runs Hyper-V, yep. It's my understanding that it's in all Windows 10. I have to double check that. My understanding. Yeah. Else? Thank you for coming.